Hi, welcome to your Sunday night vibe with lifelong friends, twinning in energy, and as holistic healers, psychic mediums, and tarot intuitives who are also executive life coaches. I'm Amy Dascola.
And I'm Dara, Jewett. Hey, how are you, my love?
Good, and we are the Soul Tribes. And today we are so excited. We have a wonderful guest. Her name is Melissa Carroll, and she's going to be talking to us about shadow work and yin and yang. And Miss Dara is going to give you a little background about our modality and topic for the day. Go ahead, Dara.
Yes, so some of you have maybe heard of shadow work, some of you maybe not yet. Basically, shadow work is bringing light to the unconscious. So it's addressing those sides of us that we have been taught to suppress and be ashamed of or to hide from society. The classic shadows that you might experience are anger, blame, laziness, jealousy, insecurity or codependency, and sometimes even independence. We must embrace all of the sides of us to really live life fully and to grow and evolve as humans. The good, the bad, the dark, the light, the ugly, the beautiful, and all the great areas in between. We mirror in our world what we have inside of us. So we must be responsible for doing this challenging soul work so it doesn't escalate and get worse. There are different ways that you can definitely integrate the shadow sides of yourself and become whole. We must really face our issues and stop running from them. We must stop running from the parts of you. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in the mud and it's just going to feel heavy. Our emotions lead us astray and cause us to react unknowingly. By ignoring the problems around us, the pain and suffering continues. So if you do work with your shadows, you can really reap the rewards. You will get increased energy. Your immune system will be boosted. You will improve your relationships. You'll have healthier communication. You'll have an enhanced state of well-being and establish healthy boundaries, which of course all of us definitely need. And so some of the ways that we can definitely work with our shadows is through journaling. As Amy and I love to do is soul work every single week is journaling with you. And there is a deeper meaning. We're not just trying to give you homework from Miss Dascola. It's basically that journaling, seriously, I mean, she's amazing and we can learn a lot from doing these questions, asking ourselves. This is something that I utilize as a life coach with my clients. It's asking those open-ended questions so they can really think and get in deep and discover all their feelings that are hidden deep inside. Because once you reread your journal entry, you can discover where your blocks are. And once you discover those blocks, then you're aware of the patterns. And once you're aware of these patterns, you can begin to notice where you need to make the shifts in your life. So you can have a healthier internal dialogue. And basically it helps you to decipher what habits are healthy and which ones are no longer serving you for the highest good that you need to let go. So instead of reacting to life, you can learn how to play the game and you can respond to life. You no longer have these suppressed hurt feelings. You're no longer running away from painful experiences. You can really accept what you have tried to suppress and integrate it and heal and become whole. So remember through all this shadow work to really become compassionate and really be gentle with yourself, because you really are learning to reprogram that which you've been taught by society to believe since you're very young. One of my favorite quotes to really work with the shadow is by Rumi, who is a famous Persian poet. And it really states that your task is not to seek for love, but merely to find all the warriors inside of you, all those blocks inside of you that are built against it. So it's about finding everything that blocks you from receiving that eternal love and
I love
moving
that.
it. Yes, right?
Right.
So that really does kind of bring us into the other modality Amy had mentioned, which is Yin and Yang. It's basically something that was created a long time ago in Taoism and Taoism philosophy, like 3,000 years ago in China, that states that there are two forces that make up all aspects and phenomena in life, and that there is light within all dark and dark within all light. So basically, all things are sustained within themselves and they're inseparable and they're contradictory to themselves, they're opposites, but a correct balance between these forces can achieve great harmony in life. So that is what we want to strive for in our life, is to create that balance and that synergy. And the yin is a symbol of feminine, a symbol of earth, darkness. It's passive and it's absorption or receiving. And yang is perceived as heaven. It's maleness, it's light, it's activity, and it is penetration. And so once we find these balances, we can really find the balance and harmony in our life. So Amy, please tell me, when these modalities, when your shadow work, when the light and dark, being able to balance these harmonies, when in your life has that played out?
So I feel like with shadows, it's honestly, I went through a spiritual awakening very young. I went through an awakening at 11 years old, and I spent, I feel like, a large portion of my adolescence in my shadows because I realized all that was going on and I was too young to understand like what this realization was and what was happening. But I was blessed enough to have these mentors kind of put into different places of my life. And one of those, or some of those mentors, were my parents, thank goodness. So they helped me to kind of go through the shadows and really address what was going on. And I was supported because there are a lot of light workers, I guess you could say, within both sides of my family. So it wasn't something that was looked down upon. It was something like, oh, she's got it too. It's her turn. So I was lucky to have that. But you may have heard from people, a spiritual awakening is not an easy thing. It's like going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So it's a beautiful process once you're the butterfly, but as you're going through it, it's very painful, it's very dark, and you do live within the areas of your shadows and things start coming up. So it's almost like, to me, like looking into a mirror of yourself and starting to realize what those things are that are in your shadows, whether it's a generational thing, whether it's trauma, whether it's being a fire sign, whether it's being an Italian. You have those things that you could have as excuses, but instead you have to face them head on or nothing gets solved, because you think, oh, okay, I was 11 years old, really went through a lot of stuff that probably most 11-year-olds didn't, from trauma to a spiritual awakening to, I was a little hyperactive and had some difficulties in school, but I was also gifted. So I was always, very intelligent, but the behaviors weren't the same as the intelligence. So there were a lot of excuses that I tried to play off. So what happened is, when I thought I had it all under control and had things solved, went through therapy, went through all sorts of spiritual classes and things, even as a young kid, did reading, this, guess what? It comes right back at you. The next time you're trying to level up, or you notice, you're stepping into something else, it's still right there knocking, saying, hey, you haven't dealt with me yet. I'm still here, and I'm going to be here until you deal with me. So I love this quote by Jung. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to the understanding of ourselves. So maybe your husband drives you crazy. Maybe your mom drives you crazy. Maybe your children drive you crazy. And a lot of times, if you pay attention to what drives you crazy, it's a mirror of yourself. So thinking about that and looking in that mirror and be like, why does that drive me so crazy? Oh, because it's you. So it's really, once you get into the understanding of, you are first of all attracting like things and you're vibrating with like things. If you want something different, it's kind of up to you. You got to act differently. Otherwise, nothing will change, right? So I feel like I have done a lot of shadow work since 11 years old. I mean, really, it's been a plight of the shadows for me. And so I am very big on making sure that we normalize those shadows and that we don't allow ourselves to only show the light. We have to show the darkness too, because that's what makes us, and that's what makes us whole and what makes us beautiful and unique. And because of what we've endured is making us who we are. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
Yes.
Dara, what would you say have been your experiences with shadows or your shadow work, or however you would like to say it?
Well, just to speak on what you were saying too, the duality of good and bad and right and wrong, it's such a controlled perspective in society. It's nothing is really ever good or bad. It's honestly just an experience in life. And those experiences our soul actually contracted to have so that we may learn certain things and be able to raise our frequency. And so being able to embrace the whole of ourself on this extremely volatile planet Earth, we can endure many traumas, but all of these are planned so that we can grow and learn and evolve and awaken and upgrade and transform and morph into this higher frequency being that can help to raise the universal frequency and raise Earth's frequency, because Earth is a living entity as well. It's alive and it has an energy and a frequency of itself. And so when we raise up, we raise everybody up with us. And so, a lot of us that are light workers, to my knowledge, becoming a rainbow body is the highest level of frequency that you can achieve. And we'll talk more about what a rainbow body is on a future episode. But it's really being able to just lift yourself up out of that darkness. I endured many traumas when I was younger, as Amy, as many of you have. And I had to really completely break down and rebuild myself in each level and each upgrade that I've gone through, in embracing my shadows and embracing, some of those traumas that really were struggling for me, because it was a repeated pattern that was stemming from somewhere that I didn't know. And this is where my soul retrieval really came into play. So anyone that's really struggling with parts of themselves that feel lost and not there, something's missing, shadows that you just can't embrace, or repeated trauma that is just so holding on to your soul that it's hard for you to even see the light, I really would recommend looking into getting a soul retrieval, because it's really about embracing all sides and understanding that now you're safe, and you're going to create a safe space for all parts of your soul to exist in, and embrace those shadows, embrace the light and the dark, and the light and the dark and the dark and the light, because there's good in every bad and there's bad in every good. Mm-hmm. It's the duality and it's the balance. And when I was able to get that soul retrieval, it really transformed my entire life on a new direction. That's when I really, really embraced becoming a healer. And I was really able to see everything in my life so clearly, why every trauma happened to me and where it stemmed from and what I was supposed to learn from it. And it was all just like, aha.
Mm.
And I learned so much and I upgraded and it was painful and I lost friends and I lost my whole desire for what I wanted shifted. Like I was a photographer and a makeup artist wanting to do music videos and be on commercials and MTV, BET, Universal. And now all of a sudden I wanted to go backpack in South America and South Asia and sit with monks and shamans and learn how these other forms, like if this soul retrieval could do that much for me, like what else could be out there that could help heal not only myself, but then other people. Because I always have been the kind that I want to pay it forward and teach others and help others with the knowledge. And this knowledge has been there. The thing is it's been hidden. And so we're normalizing it and bringing it to light and letting you know that there is a place for shamans in a modern community and they can really help you in a lot of ways if you're going through some really serious things. And if things are not quite as heavy, like we were talking about before, journaling work is an amazing modality that can really help you to tap in to your shadows, to be able to really embrace them. So basically, we have a remarkable guest, as Amy said, and she is an expert on shadow work. And so I really want to hand it over to Amy so she can introduce tonight's amazing guest.
And now I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Melissa Carroll. And she's very special to me because she actually attuned me to Reiki. And so it's just an honor to have her here. She is a Reiki Master. She is a shadow work expert. She even has her own course on shadow work. So please listen later. We're going to tell you all her info where you can find it. She also is an amazing yoga teacher locally here in Tampa. And she also has some on YouTube. She's got meditations. She's got everything you need online as well. So you can see her anywhere. She's also, an author and of my own heart and kin, a former professor. I mean, she does it all. And she's such an advocate of automatic writing, which is just my jam. So I just am so happy to have her. She has an essay collection called Going Om, Real Life Stories on and Off the Yoga Mat. And she's also the author of 3 poetry books. And she also, I mean, how many times am I going to say also? Like, what doesn't she do? She also co-leads yoga teacher training programs in Tampa, Florida at the most amazing yoga studio. And she has, as I said, an online course called Shadow and Light, which helps magical people embrace the unhealed parts of themselves to experience profound shifts in their lives. And we've kind of been talking a little bit about that. So Melissa, we are just so happy that you're here, love.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be
so
here.
much. Yay. So it's so amazing to meet you, Melissa. And one of the questions that we always love to ask people, because it's really a way for everyone to really get to know who you are and how you got here. So how did your path lead you to create all this magic in the world?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much to the both of you. You have such just loving and vibrant personalities and energy. So I'm so happy to be here. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And so really my path began when I was 9 years old. I started to feel really depressed and could not understand why. Like there was no external cause. It was an internal questioning and not understanding why. I was asking like the eternal questions, right? Why are we here? I don't understand. And really actually fell into chronic depression and stayed depressed throughout my childhood into my early adulthood until I discovered Reiki when I was 22 years old. And it's amazing. It's one of those things I think in life we try to plan as best as we can, but sometimes the detours or the events that just seem like little side notes actually become the great catalyst or the great shift. And I was just fresh out of college working as a freelance writer, making no money. And I had to take a night job as a receptionist at a wellness spa. And they had these yoga magazines and like essential oils pumping through the airways. And I'd never been around any of that kind of stuff. And one day a Reiki master showed up and was giving treatments for free, and no one else was around in the spa. She said, well, would you like one? And I said, well, sure. And it literally changed my life. And that was that moment that I had always been searching for inner peace. And like most of us, especially in the modern world, we are seeking happiness through externals, right? We're seeking happiness and validation in other people or in accomplishments. And I'm still very much working out those stories, but uncovering Reiki and experiencing those shifts in my energy field that led to what is now my life's devotion of studying yoga and how we can connect back to who we are, to the true self with the capital S, not that small self that is searching outside of ourselves, right? So really it's about coming back right here, right home to the heart where the true self lives. So yeah, so I've got my yoga certification soon after that. And then also went to graduate school for creative writing and became a writing professor for a couple of years while teaching yoga. And now I've really moved into studying shadow work and teaching these online courses, just as you had mentioned, Amy.
Love that. It's so amazing to see, because I've kind of seen you along the journey, and it's just the progression is just beautiful, and it just makes so much sense. And I have a very similar story of like young adolescent depression. And it's so empowering to see, look, you can absolutely get right out of that. And it does happen. But that kind of leads me to what we're talking about with the shadows. So if you had to say, like, what lies within your shadows? And if you could just kind of paint a picture for people that aren't familiar with it.
Absolutely. I think shadow work is so important because we all have a shadow. And I've heard it said that, when you stand in the sunlight, your body casts a shadow behind you, even though you're not usually aware of it. The same is true with our psyches. So we all have a shadow. And sometimes in the spiritual world, there is a tendency to bypass and only want to focus on the love and the light. And while that's beautiful and important, we cannot continue that for very long. It's not sustainable. At a certain point, you've got to start to look at the full complexity of what it means to be human. So the shadow was originally a term that was coined by the incredible psychiatrist of the early 20th century, Carl Jung. And really, he defined the shadow as all of the pieces of ourselves that are unhealed, that we reject, that we shove away, that we repress, that we try to avoid. But we know that just because you ignore something doesn't mean it goes away. There's the old saying, what you resist persists. So a lot of times we try to resist the qualities that we see maybe in our shadow, or that we see that we project outward on other people that we don't like in other people. And we deny that we contain even the potentiality for that same quality. But just because you resist it doesn't mean it disappears. So shadow work is this really beautiful, illuminating process of shining the light on all of those basically unloved, unaccepted parts of yourself, and radically pouring appreciation and gratitude into those pieces of yourself so that you can actually become whole. The image,
that.
yeah.
Absolutely. That is so beautiful. And I know that a lot of people don't want to admit that they have anger. They don't want to admit that they have jealousy because they've been programmed to believe that these feelings or insecurities, that they're bad and they make you lower than or less than. But we have to really stop programming ourselves to believe, first of all, good and bad, and just see the lesson. Because the shadow, although, might not always be helping us in the best way, we still at least have to address it and understand what it is to be able to deal with it and heal from it. Because just by running away from it, you're always just going to be running away from it, and you're never going to really heal.
And it comes right back knocking at your door, regardless of how fast or how far you run, in my experience.
Yeah. And I know that you are also an amazing expert on yin and yang energy. And I really basically wanted you to first speak a little bit more about that as well. And then also really talk about, the duality of yin and yang and like how you can apply it into your life.
Yes. And really, yin and yang energy is a beautiful way for us to also imagine the shadow too, and how really we are this incredibly beautiful, messy, complex collage of what it means to be a human being. And so the yin yang symbol, as we all know, is it stems from Taoism, and of course made very popular 90s fashion. I had a yin yang choker in the 90s, even though, I wish I kept it.
So did I. Yes, it was black, and then it had, yes, oh my God. And a peace sign.
I remember Dara having that. Oh my God.
Stop.
Did we all have that choker? We need to bring it back.
Basically. Yeah. No, yeah, Amy and I both were always, we always had that because we were friends back then.
Yeah, we've known each other since then. So there you go.
Girl.
Validated.
So, yeah, so you had your choker. I love it.
Right. But the symbol itself is just so rich with meaning. So of course we have the black side and the white side, and they're constantly swirling into one another. They're like two waves, and the outlines of the waves are constantly meeting and blending. And of course we have the drop of white in the black side and the drop of black in the white side. So this is the way that the Taoists understood all of reality. And it parallels yoga in many ways in ancient yoga philosophy, and this understanding of the nature of the world we live in, that everything emerges, all energy emerges out of a field of unity, oneness. But as that energy begins to coalesce into matter, it polarizes. And so it polarizes as we observe it. When we only observe anything by its perceived opposite, right? We only know night because we have an idea of what is day, up, down, right? Even we perceive something as pleasant because we have an idea in our heads about what is bad or unpleasant or unworthy. So yin and yang are these two co-essential forces that are always blending. They're not these separate entities that are at war with each other. They actually require one another. And what you said, Dara, was so true, that with shadow work, we don't want to think about things as good or bad, right? Because that just further strengthens the inner critic and strengthens our own self-judgment, which I've found the inner critic will keep your shadow locked in place. So, so yin and yang are the same. Yang is the white side of the symbol, and it represents the sun. Solar energy, which is characterized by being active, dynamic, forceful. Even in the body, we know that yang physiology is like your muscles, whereas yin, conversely, is the moon. So it's quieter, it's more introspective, it's grounding, it's going with the flow. Physiologically, yin is your bones and your deeper connective tissue. You need both to be able to function. We need the sun and the moon to have life on this planet. However, we can see that as a society, we are living very, very out of balance. We live in a yang dominated culture where, like we were just mentioning, right? We're always seeking validation from the outside, whereas Brene Brown says, Saint Brene Brown, I love her. She says we measure our self-worth with our productivity. And so what can we do to bring ourselves back into balance? We need to now shift and reclaim rest and acceptance and being more grounded and quiet instead of trying to force our externals to fit what we believe they should so we can feel in control. And as a control freak, you know, this isn't the easiest thing in the world, but that's exactly why I practice all these things. They're just practices.
That's amazing.
100% am with that. I mean, especially like, I feel like as the elementary teacher background, it just makes it even worse. Like just trying to schedule and control. And it's also taking that pause and like how important. And I really feel like hopefully one of the lessons of 2020 and this COVID era is, listen, a good pause is good for you. And hopefully everyone has learned how to take a pause. But what I do want to ask you though is, how does shadow work help you to reclaim belonging? Because it seems like you were saying kind of vibrates opposite sometimes. And, you know, we're trying to stifle ourselves instead of deal with things. So how does that help with belonging?
That's a great question. So because when we resist these certain aspects of who we are, and like you were pointing out, Dara, we often judge ourselves, right? We think we shouldn't feel anger. We shouldn't feel jealous. We shouldn't feel sadness. We shouldn't even feel tired. So
we shouldn't feel anything but happy all the time, right?
Exactly.
And especially us as light workers.
Yes,
there's no way we would feel anything.
We should always be
Yeah,
exactly what I was going to say. Yes. Honestly, for a long time, I felt really, really terrible about myself because I would feel human emotions, like everything I just listed and a whole lot more. And then I would think, well, gosh, I'm going to teach this yoga class. Who the hell am I to be teaching a yoga
class? These feelings.
I feel feelings.
Oh,
and I guess I should just be sitting on my lotus leaf all day. As a bliss bunny, and I'm not. Damn it, what's wrong with me? So that's the line of thinking, right? It's like a shame spiral, which is also another Brene Brown idea, where so when I'm feeling this fractured state within myself, I'm not whole. I no longer belong to myself. I'm breaking my own heart, you know? And shadow work is the process of very skillfully and delicately honoring and accepting that you will feel feelings, that you will feel anger, that you will feel sorrow, without also indulging necessarily in the stories and the thought processes that bring those energies to life. So it's both. It's yes and. The universe is all yes and. It's like improv, you know? It's you always have to say yes and, right? Light and dark. Moon and sun. So we contain both. And the incredible thing with shadow work is that it's not just your negative stuff that's hiding in your shadow. It's also your deeply hidden talents, your deeply hidden gifts, the unique genius that exists within you that you're maybe a little afraid to accept and honor and bring out into the world. That's locked in there too, because it's safer. It's like if you've ever been in a job or a relationship and it's not great, but it's also not like the worst. So you just stick with it because it's easy. A lot of times we stick with our own modality of being in our lives because it's what we're used to. And it's because what society has told us to do. So by no longer doing that, by listening inward and starting to recognize, oh, okay, well, I am feeling anger right now. Let me feel it. This is also why, for me, shadow work does not work without a meditation practice. I need to have a meditation practice because meditation enables me to hold space for myself so that I don't get lost in the emotional swirl of the energy of anger, which of course I still do, like, because I'm human, but
But it
I'm
helps.
able to catch it. Yeah, catch it in the spaciousness and see, oh, interesting. Anger's rising up right now. Well, what does that feel like in my body? And I can start to separate myself from the emotion and the story. And then I can start to look at the story and see, well, no, that story's all right. That story's pretty valid, but I'm not going to let it run me over like a freight train. I'm going to see then, well, what can I do? What do I need to have a conversation with somebody in my life? Do I need to set a boundary instead of just letting the emotions eat me alive?
I mean, so well said.
Every way, yes. Yes.
Thank you for therapy for everyone for the next 10 years of their life, Melissa. Like,
Yes.
unbelievable. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Listen, if you want to know more about that, this is why you need to take her course, because if she just gave you that little tidbit in 10 minutes, imagine what the course could do for you. So it's just been so amazing to have you and to hear all of that, because we all have dark places within us. And the quicker you go to address them, the better. And also, as Melissa said, in those dark places, there's also some serious gifts that you may be unable to be vulnerable enough to find them and to access them and to unlock them. And I'm sure the three of us can tell you that the gifts that we've come out with have not been the easiest things to just come out of the closet with, right?
Exactly. They even have a term called coming out of the broom closet.
Exactly.
So it's kind of this thing. Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing to find, again, as we've all been talking about, the darkness within the light, and finding that balance in your life and honoring that you exist of both things, and that you're not just this beautiful light being, that you're not what you portray on social media, that you're not this. Everyone has gnarly spaces. Everyone has beautiful spaces, but let's honor them both and let's normalize them.
And there's gnarly in the beautiful, and there's beautiful in the
little
gnarly.
dots.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Don't forget that as well. So know that every experience, it's not good or bad. It's to learn that lesson. So look for that light, look for that lesson in that storm, because that's what's really going to help your soul elevate and help to lift you up, so that you can vibrate higher and be conscious of the feelings, be conscious of the thoughts, so you don't become them, like Melissa was talking about. So you can pull yourself back and then figure out also where it stems from. Like a lot of times people will say, oh, they get jealous. Well, for me, when I was younger, I did used to have feelings of jealousy, but then I realized it wasn't really jealous as much it was admiration of something that someone else was doing that I wanted to also be doing. So instead of allowing my feelings to go with a jealousy or hatred type of a feeling, I would look at them and say, what can I learn from them? How can I grow so that I can incorporate that into my life also? That's what it's about. It's about learning from each other. It's growing. And so really helping each other to normalize all of these feelings and these things so that we can get past like the ugly part of it and like figure out what it really is. So jealousy really isn't a bad thing. Jealousy just tells you what it is that you want to be going for, honey. So
Right.
like listen to that and look at the direction and figure out what can you do harder so that you can achieve that also. What do you need to learn? What do you need to accomplish? And reach out for help. Melissa's here,
Absolutely.
Amy's here, I'm here, but it might be financial. We have Patricia. There's so many people that are here to help you to achieve your dreams. And you can have gifts in those shadows, but you can also have secrets in those shadows that will help to propel you. So embrace it all and find the balance.
Absolutely. So yes, thank you, Melissa, for being here. We so appreciate your wisdom and all your time that you have spent with us. And we do want to just keep you around for a little bit longer. Something that she loves is some writing and journaling. So I know she'll be happy to be here for that. So every week, Melissa, we have our little, this is my manifesting and soul work journal. And so I leave a couple questions for everyone just to kind of ponder and think about to go with our dualities. And this week, I would like you to start really tuning into what lies within your shadows. For some people, listen, I am easily triggered. And when I'm easily triggered, there's a snap that comes after it. And I will never forget, as a young teacher, one of my mentors in life said to me, she's a Dominican woman, Amy, I need clippers for your tongue. And she would talk about it because anything that comes out of my mouth at times should be quiet, or sometimes it's a little toxic, or sometimes it's a little poisonous, or sometimes it's just things that shouldn't be said. So, and I've always had that. As a young child, my dear mother used to wash my mouth out with soap because of the lovely things I would say to her. So just find humor in what's in there, because listen, if you can't laugh at yourself, what are you good for? Like, we have these things, but let's not put such stigmas on them. Normalize it. Okay. I'm an angry bird at times. And I could, as I said earlier, find the excuses of, oh, I've endured trauma. Oh, I'm Italian. Oh, I'm a fire sign. Oh, I'm a pitta. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to. It's not an excuse. I'm going to set boundaries. And when I get in that moment, I'm going to stop myself and say, whoa, what strategy can I use? Just like I would say to my little Sophia, what strategy can I implement to make sure this doesn't continue to happen? And even more, let me fall into, what is this? And where is it coming from? And what happened when I was little, or whatever it is that is triggering this? Because for me, I found my shadows are from something that has been unaddressed. So just sit in that little place within you. Then I want you to think about, how can you address your shadows? So I kind of went into that a little bit of like, you know, when I do get triggered, or like Dara was talking about, when she gets jealous, she instead, Dara, you can kind of go a little more on how, you know, how do you address it?
So it was really just understanding like what it was. So because I'm such a loving person, I feel everything. So for me, I've never been able to give anybody any kind of hate or do anything wrong to anybody, even if I accidentally, when I was a little girl, like 2-3 years old, accidentally did something to someone, it actually comes back and hits me like times 10. So if I hurt your feelings, I will break down and cry. Like it hurts. Like I will.
Mhm.
No, I can cry with anything. Like it's like ridiculous. I should have been an actress anyway. No, but I'm just saying, like I feel things so intensely. And so I really utilized those feelings and tried to always decipher where it was coming from and how I could balance it and how I could use it so it wouldn't hurt me. And so jealousy is kind of a low frequency. So I think I first probably felt it when I was a dancer. I used to be a dancer when I was really young, little girl, and I developed a little sooner. Now, of course, some people might think that's a good thing, but when you're in a leotard and tights in front of everybody else, and you're the first one that develops, it's actually extremely embarrassing. So I didn't want that to happen. And so I began to get jealous of the other girls and how come my body was changing and their body wasn't changing. And so then it was kind of like I had to figure out where those feelings were really coming from. And I realized it was society programming that you have to be so skinny, because at that time it was all about pencil thin skinny, whereas thank God now it's not quite so bad. But I still do not agree with how media portrays women. But because it does.
That's a topic for a whole nother day.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode, but it messes with little girl psyches and it totally can send them down a really harmful path, which, was part of my story. But more so, basically, I had to realize and really embrace that part of me to heal from that trauma, so that I wouldn't let it control my entire life and let it completely spiral out of control. And just realize that, no, it's okay to be curvy. It's okay to be a woman. I am a woman. I have curves and I'm going to embrace them. And luckily then I went into I switched into an older class when I was in middle school. So now I was with the high school girls. That helped everything because now I had the same body. So I will say that really did help. So if mothers, you're finding your daughters in that same situation, think about putting them into an older class because it really does help. But more so than I had to, once I was conscious and older, like I had to deal with that issue. So by really embracing that part that it's like, okay, what am I jealous of skinny girls for? Because society tells me that I have to be skinny. No, I don't want to believe that. What I'm going to say is I want to be healthy. So then I went on a quest and I got healthy and I learned everything I could about exercise and diet and learned how to control my weight.
You rewrote your story.
I fluctuated a lot. Yes. And so I really learned how to heal myself through learning how to control my health instead of allowing my insecurities about my body to control me. So, and learning that, and just letting it give me strength and grow from it. There's lots of different examples that you can all probably think of, but it's really just anything that you struggle with, jealousy, anger, insecurity, or even independence. Like, please, I don't need a man. I got this all on my own. Or like a man that will say, I don't need a woman. I got this all on my own. Well, maybe you don't, and that's fine. But at the same time, we are all human and we are meant to be cohabitating together in tribes. There's a famous quote that says, those in the jungle survive in tribe. And this is one of the reasons we have the soul tribes, is because the tribe helps you survive.
So that leads me to our next question, which is, what do you need to feel like you belong? Because I feel like so many of us go around searching, and especially the three of us have been talking a lot about adolescence and what a nightmare that is. And Dara and I were lucky enough to have each other during adolescence and throughout life. But what is it? And we've been also talking about a soul tribe. And as energy workers or healers, whatever you want to call us, it is very difficult to find people that vibrate like us and that feel like us and that you can say wild things to and they don't even blink an eye. And you're like, what? Where have you been? So what is it you need to feel like you belong? What is it that will help you to reclaim who you are and not any longer feel like that's something that you should be ashamed of or something that, you know, you don't want as your story. Instead, rewrite it and say, this is who I am. With my coaching clients a lot, I love to do an I am exercise and just see what comes out on the paper. And it's so magical to know all that you embody, dark, light, however you want to phase it, all parts of you. So thinking to yourself, what do I need to feel that I belong? So, ladies, it has been a wonderful journey today, and I am just so grateful to have you two both as a part of my soul tribe because, as we said, listen, it's a rough world out there, and the more people you can find to love, honor, and support who you really are, whether it's in darkness or light, because we all exist within them, is a blessing to no end. So I want to quickly tell you where you can find Miss Melissa. You can find her on Instagram. She is the.yoga.writer on Instagram. And then you can also find her at her website. And if you would like to take the shadow work course, it's on there and all of her other offerings. I was just telling her how beautiful her website is because listen, we're all of the spiritual realm learning the techie realm, so it's tough, guys. So she did an amazing job. It's beautiful, and it's theyogawriter.com. And you can find myself on amydascola.com or Amy Dascola Medium on Instagram or Facebook, and you can of course also find us on the Soul Tribes. And Dara?
You can find me on Facebook or IG at Dara Jewett, DaraJewett, and you can find all my websites on there as well. We really want to thank you so much, Melissa, for coming and joining us. Your energy is so radiant and bright. You are such an amazing attribute to the Lightworker community. And I am so in honor of all of the work that you are doing to help raise the frequency. So thank you, Goddess. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your medicine, your gifts with humanity. And I cannot wait to meet you in person. And we're going to do a Reiki share in person. So we'll talk more about Reiki shares in future episodes. But oh so my goodness, it's amazing. Yes. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. This is so much fun. Yay. So much love.
Absolutely. So thank you again. And you can find us, as we said, you can find us on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts. Make sure, please subscribe, comment, like, tell us anything you want. And you know where to find us all. And we so look forward to keeping you within our soul tribe. And thank you again, Miss Melissa, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.